Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this online transition to organic production webinar series organized by SAS Organics. My name is Denlin Wen. I am a provincial specialist in alternative cropping systems. I work with the Saskatchewan Ministry of Agriculture. My work is to support organic industry in the province, particularly supporting organic crop farmers in area for weeds management, soil fertility improvement, organic crop rotation, growing cover crops, intercropping, and so on and so forth. The topic of my talk today is agronomic management for transition period and organic system. The discussion will be on both general organic management and those specific agronomics during transition period. To get started, I want to let you know that the top 3 questions that I have been asked by producers who plan to transition to organic production. Number 1 is how do I manage weeds? And the number 2 question is how do I maintain and improve soil fertility? And the number 3 is where do I start? I hope that by end of this presentation, you will have the answers to these questions. It's true, once you start transitioning, everything is changed. For example, weed control used to be a simple thing, just spray herbicides, suddenly become a difficult issue as you are not allowed to use Roundup anymore. However, when you look down the road in a couple of years, you will produce a certified organic products, benefits yourself, family members, and your customers without using any chemicals. Not only you will enjoy organic price premium, making more money, but you will also make contributions to reduce the CO2 emission and decrease the environmental contamination. It is truly a great opportunity. The Canadian Organic Standard put a transition period there to allow you to adjust your mindset, give you time to learn organic principles and practices, get familiar with your organic crop management, and build your organic production system. During this transitional period, you will have to juggle around economics, management, and agronomics. And I hope that you will do best to make a balance between them. I believe that during transition period, you should focus on 2 things. The first is to build your organic cropping system, and 2, find a mentor. I mean, experienced organic producers in your local area who you can rely on, help you make decisions. During transitional period, I would suggest put aside, making profit temporarily, because you will have plenty times to make money after you start producing organic crops. A couple of things I want to make sure that we understand completely before we keep going. First is the transition period is from the day of last use of non-approved substance to the day that your first organic crop is harvested. This transitional process normally takes 36 months or 3 years. During this period, your crop production must follow the guideline of Canada Organic Standard, but the products are sold at conventional market. Second, the 3 years of transition does not equal to 3 crops. As a matter of fact, if you do all things right, this 36 months transition can be 2 years of a transitional crop, and a 3rd crop in year 3, you should harvest your first organic crop. In the following discussion, of transition, economic management, and agronomics discussion, I would apply this assumption that only 2 years transition crop will be harvested in the 36 months transition period. Some producers do not pay attention to pre-transition land and soil preparation, but this preparation can be very important. You should choose your best and the most productive land to go for certification. Transitioning native grassland or pasture land take less time for certification, but the soil are low in fertility or nutrients and often fail to produce immediately after they got certified. If you're not sure about your soil fertility situation, take soil sample and send them to a commercial soil testing lab. If your soil comes back with low nutrients, and you can correct the problem much easier at this time than after you enter transition. For example, if your soil has a very low available phosphorus, you can add a fertilizer. Similarly, if your land has noxious weeds, such as Canada thistle, crackgrass, or bindweeds, you can use all the means, including herbicides, to get rid of them before you file for transition. The transition economics is the first thing that will come to you. To make a successful transition, potential money loss, we normally call it an investment, will have to be affordable with your current financial situation. Make sure that you evaluate the trade-offs of all benefits and disadvantage of each of the 2 years transitional crops. For example, in first year, if growing a crop on the transitional land costs $680, which would include all the expenses such as material purchase, seeds, like seeds and other supplies, operating expenses like seeding, weeding, and harvesting, as well as the labor costs. Your rough return, let's say it's $450, that's the dollar of your grain worth after you harvest them. It means that your total loss for the first year is $230 per acre. But in second year, your expenses, to seeding the crop or to grow that crop is $650 and your revenue is $840. You actually make $190 per acre. Together for these 2 years, you still have a negative loss of $40. This loss, or we call it investment, should be within your financial capacity. We hope that this investment will be recovered in year 3 when your first organic crop is harvested. But before start transition, you will need to get your financial support ready, either through bank arrangement or third-party investment. Make sure that you have also evaluated all potential risks and consider crop insurance options. I would like to introduce you to the organic crop production costs, which was published by Manitoba Agriculture Yearly. And you can use this guideline as a reference. A web link to this document is on the top of these slides. The cost for growing each organic crop were calculated in this table. As the table is pretty big, I only present the top half of the table to show you the costs associated with the production of crops. The bottom half of this table is actually the estimated financial return based on the estimation of the farm gates, so you can see which crop has a better profit margin for that particular year. Here, I will give you some details about the costs. The table actually divides the costs into three general categories: operating costs, feeding costs, fixed costs, and labor. Operating costs, including the seeds and the treatment, manure and compost, manure and compost purchase, fuel used, machine operating, crop insurance, land taxes, grain drying, certification costs, and interest charged to operating if you use your bank credit. Fixed costs means the investment you make in the fixed infrastructure, such as purchasing the land, farming equipment, and storage facilities, and also the labor costs, the employees you will hire. And you can play with your numbers to calculate the costs and a return for your farm situation. Investment in equipment. Rotary hoe, cultivator, and tine harrow are must-have farm machines to start organic farming. A minimum of $42,000 investment is needed for basic models of those equipment in 2021 if you start from scratch. I'm pretty sure that most of us here are not from scratch, but I use this to illustrate how we would use this farm machine capacity to make decisions on others. You can also, rent them if opportunity exists, or you could purchase secondhand. Based on the capacity of your farm equipment and the human power on your farm, you can roughly estimate the initial acres that you would decide to go for transition. This can be, a quarter, 1/3, or even half of the total land on your farm. The ultimate goal is to certify all your land in your operation into organic production. As you become familiar with organic farming, you will be in a better decision to add other equipment or increase more acres to your organic operation. Table on the right side are the equipment belong to nice to have a beginning of your organic transition, but you will notice that this become must to have items as more acres get certified. You may start looking for higher end farm equipment, such as the tractor shown on this slides, and camera guided interior cultivator. They are quite expensive, but they will make your farming so much more efficient. The next slides, we're talking about a fieldwork planner. A handy fieldwork planner will go a long way. Here's an example of 1 year fieldwork plan. Estimate the fieldwork occurring during each month based on the acres and the crop you will grow. The number in the table are working hours required for both related farming machines and labor, meaning the person to operate this machine. Let's take growing 2 crops as an example, in which planting 2 crops on that category. In last 2 weeks of May, you will use cultivator for 120 hours to clean up early germinated weeds before seeding. And you need also to seed the 2 crops that will require 115 hours during the first 2 weeks. Remember that farm machine can work longer hours, but if you have manpower to operate it. Similarly, in the first 10 days of June, continue weeding will use the cultivator for another 20 hours, and the continuous seeding will require the seeder for 170 to 75 hours, which is averaged as 17.5 hours a day. Based on those numbers, can you manage the machine hour and the labor hour with your existing resources? You need to estimate that. And what if the machine need to be fixed during this time? Or one of the employee need to take 3 days off? Do you have a backup plan? So this type of field work planner can also support certification documentation to show you that you are prepared. More importantly, it let you quickly get access to upcoming field work activities. If you posted in your kitchen, you could see it. Oh, next week, I've got so much work to do. Let's look at how weeds are managed on the organic management system. In the next several slides, I will show you the weeds management practices on the organic cropping system, and all this management practice apply to transitional period as well. Cultivation. Tillage before seeding a crop is commonly practiced by organic farmers, and it works really well to remove annual weeds and suppress the perennial weeds, including Canada thistle. This is one of the reasons that organic producers often seed their crops later than the conventional neighbors, because they wait for the early flush weeds and get rid of them first. For organic thistle, that for cultivation is effective in delaying its germination in following spring by about 3 to 4 weeks, depending on the tillage depth. Okay. Dr. Steve Shirtlift from University of Saskatchewan and his research group have found that early stage weed control with rotary hoe and a tine harrow are very important. Rotary hoe is good for pre to post emergence weed management, and in their research they found that 2 passes are good, and they recommended a high speed between 8 to 12 miles per hour, which is equivalent to 13 to 20 kilometers per hour travel speed. Tine harrowing can be used for weeds from germination to candy-laden stage. This candy-laden stage is for the weeds. Depending on crop types, physical damage and burial to the seedling by using this equipment need to be considered, and properly compensated in seeding rate is required that would maintain your plants counting in each square meter. That is also one of the reasons organic crop seeding rate are much higher than conventional, because this weed control potentially lose some. The next is interrow cultivator. Interrow cultivator can be used following the early stage weed control methods. It can be used as long as the rows are not closed. The interrow cultivator removes both newly emerged annual weeds and re-emerged perennial weeds, as well as those large weeds that were missed by previous methods. Komcat has become commonly used for controlling weeds that have sturdy stem like Canada thistle and white mustard in cereal crop fields. It does not really remove weeds, but cut off the growth buds and the flower at the top to reduce the weeds competition ability and prevent them from producing wheat seeds. Dr. Shirtliff at the University Saskatchewan is currently working on a project that aim to figure it out timing and frequency to use this machine on different cereal crops. And another weed control method is using the crops. Cereal crops like spring wheat, oats, and barley start growing early and fast in springtime and can effectively suppress weeds. Similarly, winter cereals are also excellent in competing with weeds. Studies have found that 4-rye produces organic compounds that inhibit Canada thistle growth, which has a scientific term called allelopathic effects, meaning one plant releases chemical compounds creating negative impact on growth of other plants. Buckwheat is another crop often used for weed control, as it grows fast and easily outgrow most weeds in short period of time. Buckwheat is well suited to organic cropping system because of its modest nitrogen need, allow it to grow really well on low fertility soils. Another measure to control weeds is intercropping. Intercropping is defined as growing more than one crop in the same field at the same time or during the same growing season. Intercrop of a cereal and a pulse is often used to increase soil fertility and crop yield. And this combination is also very, very effective in controlling weeds because of the cereal crop grow fast in spring and put weeds at a disadvantaged position. Legume crops like pea, they would start growing, climbing the cereal crop upwards, and then at a certain level, they start growing horizontally and fill the interrow space, close the canopy, blocking the light. Many weeds, like Canada thistle, they are very sensitive to light supplies. And when the supply is low, they will not grow well. They will never grow well in the shed. And pea actually is a companion crop for several cereal crops and can also be grown together with taproots like mustard, as shown on this slide. Similarly, some perennial legume crops such as alfalfa and the yellow sweet clover are also capable to smother weeds, but some varieties use a lot of soil moisture. Therefore, they may not be suitable for your farm. Talk to your organic neighbors to see what they grow. In general, multiple species cover crop mixture grow better than single species, and they also do a better job in smothering weeds. The advantage is that there are species in the mixture that grow fast, and others can close the canopy at a later time, which block light to the weeds. Another advantage of using multiple species mixture is that the complicated structured roots pick up the nutrients and the water from all depths and from all positions in the soil, which allow less water and the nutrients available to the weeds. And now let's look at how the organic producers build the practices that organic producers use to build their soil health and fertility. It should be pointed out that building soil health and improve soil fertility should be always in your mind when you consider your crops. Almost any kind of farming activities you need to consider build this in. The following approach are often used by organic producers to maintain soil health and improve soil fertility. Again, all this management practice can be used during transition period. There are several categories. There are several ways I would list. Like animal manure, it contains a large quantity of nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, sulfur, and other micronutrients, which are important in improving soil fertility. Green manure crops fix nitrogen from the air and improve soil nitrogen supply for whatever the crops following them. Cover crops, particularly multiple species mixture with legume crops included, can significantly increase the soil organic matter and the nitrogen content. They are very important in building soil health. And also the crops with deep roots, they could scavenge nutrients from the deep horizons and put back into the cultivated zone and for the next crop to use. Balance the soil nutrients through crop rotation and intercropping to increase the soil available nitrogen and phosphorus is an approach to improve soil health and fertility as well. You can also use certifying the soil supplement for your organic systems, including your transitional crops. Make sure you check with your certifier first, because any substance applied to land in transition or organic land must comply with the organic standard and must first be approved by your certifier. Let them know and record down what you have used. And in the organic cropping production system, animal manure should be your primary source of soil nutrients. If possible, you should add livestock into your grain production operation. Intensive grazing would further increase the value of your cover crop, and your livestock would add significant revenue to your farm operation. If not possible, or you don't want to, and try to work with your livestock operation in your neighborhood to arrange for grazing or simply use their manure. And this table gives you the information about available nutrient content in different types of manures. You can use this kind of numbers as a reference when you calculate application rate. Green manure, growing a legume crop or legume mixture and terminate them at the flowering stage will provide soil nitrogen for following crops. Legume crops decompose quickly as they have a low carbon to nitrogen ratio, normally in the range of 10:1 to 25:1, and which is the ratio that soil microbes like to work on. The nutrients in the green manure crop can become available for other crops in relatively short period of time after being worked into the soil. Normally less than 3 months they are decomposed. There are two general ways to terminate green manure. You can either plow them down, or they can be terminated by roller crimper. This roller crimper termination is suitable for non-till practice. you could seed directly into the crop residue. Cover crop with multiple species have gained popularity in prairie provinces, including Saskatchewan. In organic farming system, we make cover crops and green manure to function the exactly same by including legumes in the cover crops mixture. Therefore, the term of green manure and cover crops are often used interchangeably. So when people talking about cover crop with organic community, they mean the green manure. And when they talk about green manure, you could also say it's cover crop. We'll continue to discuss the legume cover crop and intercropping in upcoming slides. Legumes. Legumes have a symbiotic nitrogen fixation bacteria in their root structure called root nodules, which can convert the nitrogen gas in the air to ammonia, which is a plant available form of nitrogen. For that reason, legume crop play a key role in crop rotation in organic management system. The table lists the common legume crops to show how much nitrogen each crop can potentially fix or bring down to the soil. From the table, you could see that alfalfa and sweet clover are very effective in nitrogen fixation. So are the faba beans and harrowage. Pea and lentils are actually the common crop organic producers use as a green manure. However, dry beans fix less nitrogen. And most variety of dry beans, when you grow them, you need to have some kind of soil nitrogen available for them as well, because the fixed nitrogen is not enough for their growth. So most likely they are not suitable for the green manure use. Nitrogen fixation can be affected by many factors, even the same legume crop. The amount of nitrogen fixed depends largely on how well the crop grows. A vigorous legume crop would have a potential to fix more nitrogen. Another point we need to, another factor I want to point out is relatively low initial soil nitrogen content helps legume crop fix more nitrogen, while higher soil nitrogen have a negative effect on the formation of nitrogen fixation nodules on the roots. Cover crop cocktail. Multiple species cover crop mixture, often called cover crop cocktails, work better in producing biomass, fix nitrogen, improve soil structure, increase water holding capacity of the soil, and enhance soil biodiversity. There are three categories of a crop that are often used for cover crops. The first group is cereal and grasses species that produce a massive biomass, including above ground and fibrous roots. The second group of the crop is the legume that fix nitrogen, as we have just discussed. The third group is brassica, or called taproots, like radishes or turnips. They also produce a large amount of biomass, but more importantly, they can reduce the risk of disease and pests because they don't host the same kind of pathogen and pests to that cereal and legumes host in the mixture. So choose several varieties from each of these three groups and mix them up as a cocktail can increase the success of a cover crop, particularly during the difficult climate conditions. Some crop always grow in dry conditions, others would grow in wet conditions. To ensure the effective of nitrogen fixation in the cover crop mixture or cover crop cocktails, it is important to have the legume crop biomass account for greater than 50% at the time of termination, which means that legume biomass should be greater than all the non-legume biomass added together, which include weeds. To achieve that kind of results, you can simply use 100% seeding rate recommended for legume, add 25% seeding rate for cereal, and 25% seeding rate for brassica to the mixture. Like it's 1.5 times of seeding rate of the conventional. This will be perfect for, the cover crops. And intercropping with monocrop, root structure is simple, and microbial community associated with the roots is also simple. But when it comes to intercrop, both root structure and soil microbial interaction become much more diversified and complicated. Intercropping of a cereal and a legume is commonly adopted by farmers in prairies. The soil microorganisms associated with the legume crop play a key role in both the nitrogen fixation and the soil organic matter decomposition and release of nitrogen. So intercropping also altered the rhizosphere's soil microbial diversity and the community composition. Microbial interaction promote nitrogen assimilation and increase the soil and increase the crop yield. Wheat and faba bean can be a good example of that intercropping. They grow together and they benefit from each other's growth in the same place. And let's look at the crop rotation in organic system. The crop rotation organic system is a useful tool to manage soil fertility, balance the nutrient supply, and improve soil health, as well as the weeds and pest control. The general principle, there are 5 general principles in crop rotation. The first one is to separate similar crops as far apart as possible to suppress weeds and prevent disease and insect pests. This is very similar to conventional cropping system. And the second is following a cover crop, grow a high nitrogen demand crop to increase the crop yield and the quality, like wheat, because wheat is a high nitrogen demand crop, a high protein content, and a high value. You can also grow a high value crop like flax for increased yield. The third one is grow a moderate nitrogen demand crop when the soil nitrogen is moderate or low, like oats or buckwheats. Number 4, to insert legume and a cereal or legume taproots intercrop when the soil nitrogen is low to balance the nutrient supply from the soil. So in that case, your legume would be able to fix its own nitrogen need and leave the available soil nitrogen for other cereal crops, for other taproots crops. And number 5, you need to develop a long-term rotation a minimum of 4 or 5 years, but you could make an adjustment as the situation change. In the following several slides, I'm going to give you several examples of organic crop rotation. Example number 1 is a 3-year crop rotation for low weeds pressure weeds. 1 cover crop followed by 2 cash crops. The key for this rotation is to produce high value crop to ensure the profit margin is high. Following the cover crop, grow a wheat to achieve a high yield and high protein content. You know that wheat protein content make a big difference in the price. You know, high protein could be a meal grade, and low protein can only be, sold as a feeding grade. Then, following the master, and the 3rd year, you could grow a mastered pea intercropping, and these 2 crops are high value. Pea can overcome, possible shortage of nitrogen supply after the first wheat crop. This is a 4-year. This is a 4-year crop rotation for low weeds pressure field. Again, cover crop in year 1, grow a flax in year 2. As you all know, that flax is worth like $75 a bushel today. Flax following a cover crop can achieve a significant yield advantage comparing to following another cash crop. Crop insurance have some data available showing that the flax following cover crop take advantage of high nitrogen content in the soil, can increase the flax yield by 2 to 3 bushels per acre. Growing a wheat crop in year 3. If the soil still have a large amount of nitrogen, if not, put a wheat faba bean intercrop for maximum financial return and boost soil nitrogen pool for year 4. So year 4, you could grow a crop that doesn't need a whole lot of nitrogen, such as oats. The next example is also a 4-year crop rotation that can be used to fight Canada thistle. Year 1, seed yellow sweet clover, or you could also underseed yellow sweet clover to oats. By doing this, it will give you another cash crop for that year. And a sweet clover does not grow much in the first year. And the 2nd year, the sweet clover starts growing quickly in spring and overgrow the Canada thistle. By middle of July, the sweet clover start flowering and can be plowed down or terminated with the roller crimper. And you could seed to a 4-rye at the end of August or beginning of September of year 2. The 3rd year 4-rye continued to suppress Canada thistle through its vigorous growth and allelopathic effects we talked about. By this time, the Canada thistle should be pretty weak. In year 4, you can grow another high value crop like a flax or an intercrop pea mustard. And after we discuss the general organic crop rotation, we come back to crop rotation for transitional period. And the question we often get asked was, what makes the best crop rotation during transition period? I really wish that there's a universal answer to this question. I want to use 4 2 years crop rotation as examples to illustrate how I think we should balance the economics agronomy and management during this period, and then decide which crop rotation is the best for your own farm. Pay attention to that the bar graph for the first 2 years of rotation. The legend bar includes the blue is the overall cost to grow 2 crops in first transitional years, and light green is total revenue in these 2 years, and the deep green is total investment for the 2 years. As the diagrams show, the alfalfa rotation provides the best economic return as indicated by the deep green bar size. If it's going down below 0, if it's bigger, means you lose more money. And if small, it means you lose less money. So because this alfalfa have indicate you have the minimum investment during these 2 years. Wheat and alfalfa is number 2, the last one, and wheat pea and wheat flax is number 3 and 4. So the best from the economic perspective, alfalfa is the best. From agronomic point of view, 2 years alfalfa would help the soil to build the soil nitrogen pool, laying a solid foundation for third year organic crop. I rank it as the best. Both wheat and pea and wheat alfalfa got one nitrogen fixing crop in it, and which would fix nitrogen in the soil and prepare the soil nitrogen supply. I rank them, they are good. But like wheat and flax rotation, because both crops are not fixing nitrogen, they are consuming nitrogen. How much nitrogen they consume from the soil depends on the growth. So I would rank it as varied. So again, the alfalfa is the best. And from field management perspective, for alfalfa rotation, you seed the crop once at the beginning of a transition year and leave it to grow for 2 years. All what you need to do during this transition time is cutting, bedding, and sell. And you cannot find other crops with such a little field management work. I rank this as a low management, which is good for you, particularly for transitional producers. You got so many things to worry about, and if you can get less work and get a better return, that's pretty good. Based on this kind of ranking, the wheat alfalfa as medium, and wheat pea and wheat flax are high management rotation because you need to seed the crops and dealing with weeds and harvesting. Then all kinds of things you need to do, right? Added this together, my rating is alfalfa rotation is the best for these 3 categories: financial, agronomics, and management. However, what a rotation that fit your situation best? If you have never grown alfalfa and have no idea how to grow it and where to sell them, maybe you don't want to grow alfalfa. Maybe you don't have equipment to bale the hay, or maybe you are very familiar with other grain crops and always grow great crops, and you probably want to choose one for those crops that you are going to grow in the future to test it at this point. So you need to have your own list of those potential crops listed over there. Do this kind of evaluation and decide which is your best rotation that suit your farm the best. The next important thing what I want to say is find a trust advisor. Before and during your transition time, learn to understand the organic principle and how the field management practices have derived from those principles. I would suggest you to attend the organic events, organic field demonstrations, participate conferences, workshop, and seminars. Take the opportunities to chat with other organic farmers and learn who does what and who does what best, and develop your network with other organic farmers and find a local experienced organic farmer as your trusted advisor. It is very useful that you have a trusted advisor, because during those difficult time, or people call it the heat of battle, it can be difficult for you to remain objective. This is when your advisor can help you see through the emotion and help you to make a sound decision for your future. Here is a list of the 7 common transition pitfalls. I just want to let you know where they are, and so you won't fall into the same pit. Start with too few or too many acres. And normally you would hear those guys talking about, I wish I had a transition more acres or less acres. They could handle during the transition period. And a second pitfall is to pick the field to start for wrong reasons. And normally what I hear is, I wish I did not take advantage of 1-year transition requirement by selecting this native grassland to go first. And as I talked earlier, the native grassland or native pasture, they have a low soil nutrient supply. Once you pick it for transition, you cannot add any fertilizers into it. So you have to deal with it. And once the certification process is done, they lose the productivity. And a third pitfall is use copy and paste rather than learn the basics. And learning the basic principle and apply them to your situation is very important, because no farm is the same. No 2 farms are exactly the same, and you know your farm best. And the fourth one is maintain year by year mindset. And just like conventional producers, I would grow canola and see what next year will go, and the next year choose another canola, waiting for a few months before, and then decide what crop to grow. This is not a good idea for organic farming, and you need to have a long-term planning, at least 4 to 5 years. Think about how to use this crop rotation to manage the soil fertility, to build your soil fertility, manage the weeds. But if there's something happen, you could always adjust this before you grow that crop. But have a long plan in your mind helps. And then number 5 is neglect crop insurance decision. Make sure that you understand this crop insurance. Make sure you understand the crop insurance options available for you. This year, if you have a crop insurance, particularly this year, I mean the drought conditions, if you have a crop insurance, you could take advantage. And if you don't, you probably have a pretty difficult situation. And if you decide not to use crop insurance, you need to have another backup plan if you choose not to participate in the crop insurance. that learn the crop insurance options to you, and try the number 6. Oh, actually, there are 6 pitfalls, not 7. Try to do it all alone. Learn from your organic neighbors and consult with your trusted advisors. Don't try to do it yourself when something